At first glance, dragons are pinned in place by our modern fantasies, always breathing fire or slithering through the sky. But there's a fracture in that polished narrative, a subtle tear in what we think we know. Because behind each well-worn legend of a greedy monster hoarding gold lurks a labyrinth of deeper, more provocative myths. Myths that have been systematically pruned from mainstream lore, turned into dusty relics, or overshadowed by a single, dominating image. Ever wondered why we inherit such a narrow lens for these creatures? Could it be that the truth of dragons is far more expansive? A truth that blurs the line between beast and deity, friend and foe, secret ally and unstoppable adversary. We stand on the edge of a vast ocean of hidden lore, about to confront revelations that tug at the very fabric of accepted history. Some might call these revelations folklore gone wild, but there's a nagging suspicion that these neglected tales hold crucial insights. What if the so-called dragon was never truly an enemy, but a guardian of something we were never meant to see? By the end of this exploration, you might question everything you assumed about these ancient serpents. Brace yourself. Once we peer through these cracks in the official story, there's no going back. Everything you thought you knew unravels as the dragon realm emerges. For ages, we've been taught that dragons are purely imaginary or at best mythic relics from ancient storytelling. Yet scratch beneath the surface and you'll find a remarkable tapestry of beliefs that refuse to die. In corners of Asia, elders still speak of Nagas who guard sacred waters, echoing an untamed wisdom older than any written record. Across the Atlantic, indigenous groups recount feathered serpents bridging sky and earth, heralds of knowledge rather than destruction. Even in Europe's secret archives, references to primeval worms with the power to shape landscapes persist, tucked away from mainstream eyes. Could it be that these diverse portraits were amalgamated into a single monstrous template to keep us from questioning deeper truths? If so, what truths are so unsettling that entire cultures colluded to bury them under a uniform tale? Curiosity beckons us onward. Why do so many distinct cultures share eerily similar stories, all pointing to serpentine beings of immense wisdom? Some insist these are mere archetypes of the unknown, but others suspect something far more tangible. If dragons once linked humanity to deeper cosmic forces, who profits from branding them as savage beasts? Each time we lift the veil on these suppressed accounts, we find clues hinting at advanced knowledge or hidden energies that shape our world. Perhaps it's not curiosity at stake, but the fear these tales unlock a side of reality we can't control. Dragons are not a monolith. Chapter 1 of our hidden dossier reveals countless forms beings that shift identities across centuries and continents. We find Nagas in Asian lore not just as monsters to be slain, but as powerful guardians channeling water's life-giving essence. Their presence underscores how nature itself once spoke through these serpentine spirits. By labeling Nagas as mere beasts, have we severed our connection to sacred waters and the wisdom they carried? Yet Nagas are only one piece of this puzzle. In certain European myths, legless worms, or lindworms, slither through marshland and hills, embodying the living spirit of the soil. Tales like the Lambton worm or the Knucker highlight a bond between land and serpent, suggesting that the dragon's presence is tied to fertility, territory, and even pollution. If these serpents once served as protective totems for localized peoples, branding them as villains might have been a tool for conquerors who sought to break the inhabitants' link to sacred ground. Imagine how straightforward it would be to rally armies against a monster, overshadowing any notion that this being represented the very life force of the territory. And then, across the oceans, we meet feathered serpents like Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan, bridging earth and sky in a cosmic dance. These shapes weren't random creations, they signified the interconnectedness of all elements. We have to ask, by reducing them to monstrous idols, do we lose an entire framework of harmonious balance that once guided entire civilizations? It's almost heartbreaking to realize how a single, fear-inducing archetype might have overshadowed the vibrant complexity of these beings. Each culture shaped its dragon myth differently, encoding moral lessons, ecological knowledge, or spiritual truths into these forms. Imagine a mother whispering to her child about Nagas who protect rivers, teaching both respect for water and humility before the unknown. Or picture an elder relaying the story of a land-bound Wyrm, a metaphor for understanding the delicate balance between humanity and the earth. These narratives once bound communities together with wonder and responsibility. When we strip away the diversity of the dragon, we also strip away the intricate connections that tether us to the land, the sky, and each other. We reduce a symbol of multifaceted power, part deity, part beast, part force of nature, into something purely monstrous, caged by fire and fang. It's no coincidence that conquest-driven stories seize on that simplistic image. After all, what better way to justify the suppression of local practices than by painting their guardian spirits as evil? In doing so, we lose not just the serpent, but the vital truths guarded by that serpent's gaze. We lose warnings about imbalance, calls for reverence of the natural world, lessons on humility before forces greater than ourselves. And perhaps that's the most dangerous aspect. We're robbed of the chance to see dragons as complex mirrors, reflecting our deepest fears and highest aspirations. Chapter 2 dismantles the tired notion of the dragon as a mere hoarder of gold. Delve into myths around the globe, and you uncover stories of dragons perched at the edges of known reality, the proverbial "here be dragons" on ancient maps. They guarded boundaries, from cosmic doorways to humble village wells. In Greek lore, the Python at Delphi was not just a monster, but the guardian of a sacred oracular site, bridging mortal minds with divine knowledge. When we reduce these guardians to simple obstacles, we lose the layered meaning of crossing into the unknown. Think of the sacred groves or mountain peaks protected by serpentine sentinels. By labeling a guardian dragon as an enemy to be slain, perhaps mythic heroes also represented a shift in human perspective, a turning away from humility before sacred places. When the dragon is conquered, the once revered site becomes open for exploitation. Suddenly seizing power or knowledge by force seems rational, even heroic. In doing so, we risk forgetting that not all knowledge is meant for casual consumption. Some wells are deeper than we can fathom. Some thresholds demand seriousness and respect. By fixating on a dragon's gold stash, the real treasure is overlooked. The intangible guardianship of cosmic order, natural law, and hidden truths. Imagine how different our stories and our world would look if we revered the dragon's post as a sentinel of realms we barely understand, rather than seeing it as a greedy lizard perched on a shiny pile. Countless legends point not to dragons as random hoarders of trinkets, but as guardians of thresholds that matter on a cosmic scale. One might wonder, if these beings were so pivotal, why rebrand them as monsters? Each time we see a dragon slain in a tale, we celebrate the hero while glossing over the possibility that something essential, some sacred knowledge, cryptic barrier, or spiritual test, was lost in the process. Could it be that behind each slaying is an allegory for shutting down portals of wisdom? Consider that many cultures didn't just place dragons next to gold, but near life-giving springs, ancient oracles, or celestial crossroads. The real valuables guarded by these serpents were intangible forms of power, glimpses into higher truths, ways to speak with the divine, or deeper insights into nature's blueprint. By turning them into savage beasts, myths offered justification for irreverent conquest. The subtext is chilling. Once you slay the guardian, the treasure is yours to exploit. Yet, what if that so-called treasure, be it a sacred spring or a cosmic nexus, was never meant to be hijacked at all? From Delphi's Python to the dragons rumored to coil around remote mountain temples, each tale begs us to ask, in dethroning these serpent protectors, did we also dethrone ancient reminders of our place in a grander cosmic rhythm? Now we step into Chapter 3, where dragons cease to be external entities altogether. In some myths, humans and dragons intermingled, forging bloodlines and alliances that defy our simplistic view of them as monstrous outsiders. Asia's dragon kings took human form to rule watery domains, sometimes marrying mortal women and fathering half-dragon offspring. European folklore teems with stories like Melusine, part woman, part serpent, whose lineage allegedly shaped noble houses. These accounts reveal an unsettling possibility. The dragon isn't just out there, it might also be within us. Why hide these stories of shared heritage? Perhaps because they challenge the tidy boundary between human and creature. If dragons once walked among us not as horrors, but as partners or even ancestors, our entire worldview shifts. Instead of rationalizing their destruction, we'd have to grapple with how deeply entangled we are with what we call the monstrous. Imagine discovering that your revered monarchy's claim to power wasn't just political, but also a mystical bond with an ancient serpentine force. This idea of a dragon within extends beyond literal ancestry. Across the world, metaphors like the Kundalini serpent depict a coiled energy at the base of the spine, raw power waiting to be awakened. Could demonizing dragons serve as a psychological barrier, dissuading us from tapping into our own primal potential? If society wants compliant, predictable individuals, then portraying the dragon as an untamed terror might be the perfect scare tactic to keep us from stirring those hidden fires in our blood. If we imagine a time when royals and demigods claimed actual draconic roots, the ramifications are enormous. What if certain families' authority extended beyond political might, drawing on ancient serpent-like energies woven into their blood? Claiming dragon ancestry gave them a mandate that transcended normal human hierarchies. Such stories straddle the line between myth and cultural memory, raising the uncomfortable question, were dragons merely a symbol for deep esoteric power, or did these lineages genuinely tap into something otherworldly? Alternatively, consider the myriad legends of shape-shifting dragons who walk among us in disguise. From Asian folklore of a dragon descending into mortal form to European tales of hidden reptilian royals, these narratives might hint at how fluid the boundary between human and dragon can be. We're not dealing with mindless brutes, but intelligent ancient beings intertwined with our destinies. Precisely because they blur the lines of identity, such stories are often dismissed or actively suppressed. After all, a populace that recognizes its potential kinship with a primal force might become far less docile. Are these myths metaphors warning us not to forsake our primal, intuitive depths, or are they literal accounts disguised as allegory? In either case, they challenge a strictly human-centered worldview. Censoring the notion that we might share a legacy with dragons effectively narrows our perception of ourselves, limiting how far we dare explore the latent power humming just beneath our skin. Chapter 4 forces us to ask the big question. Who benefits from burying these intricate dragon myths? One faction might be religious institutions that gained ascendancy by demonizing old gods and spirits. Recasting dragon deities as monstrous serpents simplified the conversion process. Why explore the complexity of a water guardian or cosmic serpent when you can label it evil and be done with it? Then there's imperial expansion. Portraying local dragon legends as savage obstacles legitimated conquest. If a dragon embodies the spirit of a land, stamping it out becomes a metaphor for quelling indigenous resistance. Plus, once stripped of reverence, these lands and their sacred resources became fair game for exploitation. Observers might shrug and say it's just a story, but myth has power, and shaping myth can steer entire cultures. Let's not forget modern rationalism, which flattens dragons into childish fairy tales. The era of scientific materialism taught us to scoff at such creatures, further burying any nuance that might have survived. Yet the more we dig, the more we see that dragons point to energies, cosmic cycles, and ecological balances that science is only beginning to understand. In each layer of suppression, religious, colonial, or rationalist, someone maintains control by denying the broader public an alternative lens on power, nature, and the cosmos. And this begs the next question. What do we lose by surrendering these hidden stories without a fight? Look at the threads weaving this grand tapestry of lost dragon myths, and you'll see a pattern of systematic omission. Religious conversion recasts serpent gods as devils, imperial conquest labels local dragon guardians as mindless beasts in need of slaughter, Enlightenment thinking dismisses them altogether as childish illusions. Each wave of cultural transformation appears to stomp out the domain of the dragon a little more, until only one form remains, the ferocious monster that must be heroically slain. This flattening of the dragon concept mirrors a broader suppression of nature-based reverence, communal identity, and cosmic wonder. When we reduce dragons, we also reduce ourselves. We sever ties to an older, more imaginative worldview that recognized hidden forces, elemental spirits, and the importance of boundary keeping. The modern era openly celebrates progress and innovation, but how much of our mythic inheritance gets bulldozed in the name of advancement? And yet, even after all this erasure, the dragon refuses to vanish. Fragments of their former glory persist in temple carvings, family crests, and whispered folklore. You might find them in the serpentine patterns of art, the presence of serpent guardians in neglected shrines, or the faint echo of an ancient cosmic calendar that once placed dragons among the stars. Perhaps the greatest testament to the dragon's resilience is that we still feel compelled to question if there's more to these myths than meets the eye. Here we stand, on the cusp of revelation. Each chapter of the dragon's hidden story tears away another veil, from the denial of its many forms to the distortion of its guardian role, from the suppression of shared ancestry to the direct intention of those who sought to mask our bond with these primal forces. The ultimate secret, it seems, might be that the world is far richer, far stranger than we've been led to believe. Perhaps dragons are more than fictional beasts. They represent the raw, unpredictable currents of nature, cosmos, and even our own inner fire. If there's a takeaway, it's that we must reclaim what has been buried, listening once more to the tales that were sidelined in favor of sanitized heroics. Search for those pockets of hidden lore, question why certain narratives got pushed to the margins, and explore how these stories might reawaken a lost respect for the forces that shaped both our world and our psyche. After all, if the dragon represents anything, it's the incontrovertible truth that some mysteries deserve our awe, not our dismissal. So, let's continue the investigation. What forgotten dragon legacy resonates most with you, and how does it challenge or expand your understanding of what is real? Leave your thoughts, your questions, and your own dragon myths in the comments, because these old serpents aren't just relics. They're the keys to unlocking deeper realms of possibility within ourselves and the universe. We're left with the question, if dragons were once so revered, what vital piece of cosmic puzzle do they represent that remains off limits to everyday understanding? Pause to consider the ramifications. If dragons once symbolized humanity's deep bond with nature, cosmic rhythms, and inner transformation, then burying them has created a cosmic vacuum. The consequences of forgetting are huge, which is why we're teasing the resolution here. When we reduce dragons to fantastic hyperbole, either adorable cartoons or hideous beasts for knights to conquer, we strip them of their capacity to remind us that entire layers of illumination and caution exist. We lose a conduit to Earth's deeper mysteries. One might say, so what? They're just myths. But myths matter. They function as symbolic language for truths we can't always articulate rationally. A myth can integrate knowledge of the land, the psyche, and the cosmos into a single narrative thread, dragons bridging those elements. Once provided direction on how to respect natural boundaries, how to approach the unknown with reverence, and how to handle power responsibly. If you sever that link, people might forget there's anything to respect or approach carefully in the first place. These days, we face ecological crises, spiritual disillusionment, and an overemphasis on surface-level narratives. Could the confusion stem partly from losing that multifaceted guide who once coiled around our myths, ensuring we never forgot our humble place before the forces of nature? Perhaps that's an overreach, but perhaps not. The consistent demonization, trivialization, or exploitation of dragons across multiple centuries definitely hints that something huge was at stake. We're about to reveal our final conclusion, the ultimate secret that these hidden dragons might still hold. But step carefully, this is more than a matter of academic interest. We're dealing with symbols that have fueled civilizations and shaped entire worldviews. If dragons hold keys to reclaiming a sense of cosmic wonder, ecological balance, or personal empowerment, that's more than enough cause for powerful groups to prefer them hidden. Let's not jump too far, though. We still have one more step to reconcile all these hidden threads. We near our conclusion. The tapestry of hidden dragon lore, the shapeshifters, the guardians, the cosmic serpents, and the bloodkin stories, forms a pattern of deep relationship, bridging the mortal and the divine, the human psyche and the boundless energy of nature. Recapturing that shadow means challenging mainstream narratives that have become so ingrained we barely question them. We say shadow because these aspects of the dragon mythos have been banished to the darkness. Imagine your own shadow. It's always there, yet we rarely pay attention unless we're forced. The shadow of the dragon is no less universal, an undercurrent of raw creative or destructive principles we don't fully comprehend but sense instinctively. Reclaiming it involves more than saying dragons are real. It involves re-examining our relationship with nature, with hidden knowledge, with the idea that not everything is up for exploitation. Why does it matter? Because these older, more complex dragon stories champion the notion that some powers, they spiritual, elemental, or cosmic, simply exceed human claims of dominion. That calls for humility, a trait that has become easily overshadowed by the modern pursuit of progress and profit. By exploring these suppressed legends, we might catch glimpses of an alternative worldview, one where the monstrous and the divine can converge and where reverence, not conquest, stands at the forefront. If we see dragons as living allegories for the unstoppable energies that swirl within the earth and cosmos, the question undergoes a profound shift. Should we be slaying them or learning from them? Could bridging the gap between dragon and human narratives hint that personal transformation and cosmic unity are closer than we think? Tapping into that possibility might be the reason dragons were shoved aside in the first place, because acknowledging their potential could lead us onto paths of exploration that the gatekeepers prefer remain hidden. As the ancient murals crumble, glimpses of vibrant scales appear, reminding us that not all mysteries can be killed off with a single spear thrust or a dismissive wave of the hand. And so we come to the part that challenges all of us, the final moment of reflection. The official stories about dragons, whether from Hollywood's special effects or simplified folklore, barely scratch the surface of a vast, labyrinth-like narrative. We've excavated hints that dragons could exist as wise nature spirits, cosmic guardians, or even distant ancestors, each role inconvenient to dominant worldviews that favor conquest and tidy orthodoxy. Now that we know, what do? I invite you to question every myth you've been handed, not just about dragons, but about any legendary being relegated to children's tales or monstrous caricatures. Ask yourself, who benefits from telling you it's all nonsense? Could reclaiming these hidden facets enrich our cultural imagination, or even spark new ways to live in harmony with the land? Perhaps the greatest secret is that dragons, in their countless forms, were never just legends. They were, and maybe still are, symbols of an untamed force bridging the material and the mystical, calling us to acknowledge realms our modern world is quick to dismiss. Let that uncomfortable possibility set off a spark in your mind. Maybe, just maybe, part of that draconic mystery lives in you too. So what do you think? Are dragons best left in storybooks, or do they still convey a deeper truth that our civilization desperately needs? Share your thoughts below. Let's continue unraveling these scaled enigmas together. Like, subscribe, and venture further down the rabbit hole of lost history and suppressed knowledge. Remember, once you start peering behind the curtain, you might see dragons everywhere, and that might not be such a bad thing. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and may we all awaken that sleeping serpent of wonder within ourselves.